Hi, I'm Tom, and behind me is a Mahindra 1635. It's about 35 gross horsepower and right around 30 PTO horsepower. And I bought this tractor just about 4 years ago today. I bought it in July of 2020, and I now have about 350-ish and some change hours on it. So those of you who follow the channel, you know that I take good care of my stuff. It stays undercover. This tractor has been 100% dealer maintained, other than, every 10 hours or so I grease it and I keep an eye on everything. I changed out a ground strap and, a couple other things, but primarily because this tractor was bought brand new and I wanted to keep it. I also wanted to make sure that the warranty wouldn't have any troubles, so I always had the dealer maintain it. So this had its initial service, it had a 100-hour service and a 200-hour service performed at the dealer. So everything that was supposed to be done during those services has been done. And this tractor has not been abused one bit. It's been really well taken care of. Now understand, I do have a farm. I have cattle and sheep, so I do use it like a tractor. But I don't feel like I put it, to the design limits or beyond the expectations of what a normal, small farmer would do with their tractor. So let's take a look at a few things, and I'll show you why, even though I really want to like this tractor, I pretty much hate it. And I'm never going to buy another Mahindra. And I know in some previous videos I've told you that, initially when I got the tractor, I was like, I probably would buy another one. Well, time does its thing, and so, I don't mind eating a little crow and changing my opinion. But let's take a look at a few things. I've had two Kubotas, and I never had one trouble with them. And I maintain the Kubotas myself. Never had not one thing. Kubota. The reason I got rid of the last Kubota was because it didn't have live power and I needed it. But, one thing I want to make sure that you understand too is I don't make much money off YouTube. So some people think that YouTubers make thousands of dollars making YouTube videos. And yeah, sure, that's the case with some people when they get like millions of views. But look at my channel, I get hundreds. So there's not a lot of money being made here. So my opinion is strictly my opinion. And the caveat here is you can buy whatever you want. I don't care. It's your money. So I'm just going to tell you my thoughts and my opinions of Mahindra and why I'll never buy another one. And you can draw your own conclusions and buy whatever you want, because like I said, it's your money, it's not mine. So let's take a look at a couple more things here. So I wouldn't be doing due justice if I didn't tell you some of the things that I do like about this tractor, because not everything is 100% bad, just like not every person is 100% bad, contrary to what some people believe. So the good things I like about this tractor is I feel like I'm sitting up pretty high, and the field of vision is really good. And one of the reasons I bought this tractor, and I didn't realize at the time, but I thought this whole tractor was built by Mitsubishi in Japan, when in fact it's just the chassis that's built by Mitsubishi. It's got a Mahindra motor in it, and whether it's an actual Mahindra motor or one TYM built for Mahindra, I'm not real sure, but it's not a Mitsubishi engine. So we'll start off by saying the two current model tractors that Mahindra has that I know for a fact are built by Mitsubishi are the Max 26 XLT and the 1626. So this is a 1635. I wanted more horsepower. Otherwise, I would have got the 1626, and sometimes I wished I had bought that one because it was 100% Mitsubishi. So, like I said, it sits up high. I've got a good field of vision. It's got a nice wide stance, and Mahindra's not full of crap when they say their tractors are built heavier. The weight's built in. My land is really, really steep, and this tractor has been on some pretty good inclines, and not one time have I felt, like this tractor might go. I've never felt one of the back wheels get light, or it's always felt solid. Now understand, there's 80 gallons of rim guard in these tires, so they're loaded and they're set out wide, but the tractor's a heavy tractor. So those two things, it's got a good field of vision and it's heavy, and I feel pretty safe on it. So let's talk about some of the things I really hate, which really is more of them than there is of things I like. So we'll take a look at that next. So I guess we'll start at the very beginning, because there's been a list of things that have gone wrong with this tractor. And the very first thing that went wrong with it, when I didn't even have 15 hours on it probably, was down here there's these cables that go up to the joystick, and one of these cables does up down, one does dump curl. So one of these broke down here. It's just pot metal, and it broke down here where it goes into this hydraulic box, and I couldn't lift the loader, and I switched the hydraulic lines around, so I was able to use the loader, but it didn't work. And then finally I realized that this was what was broken. So I bought this in July of 2020, and by November of 2020 I had problems. I understand this was right in the middle of COVID, and so the dealer came up, he put some tie wraps on it, and I was able to go up down, but there was no float. So it got me through the winter pretty much. The parts were on order for 6-8 months before the parts came in, and that's when I brought the tractor in and they serviced it. So it was quite a while before the right parts came in. But that was the very first problem I had, was with a joystick. I've got some videos on what happened next, and what happened was my starter went bad, and so I cleaned up all the grounds, I cleaned up all the connections, I put a new ground, because these tractors come with a really cheap braided ground wire that's not worth crap. So if you buy a new tractor, the first thing I would do is take that ground off, throw it in the garbage, go to Napa or whatever and buy yourself a good ground cable, put dielectric grease on both ends, make sure the paint's scraped off, and make sure your ground is really good. I have talked to several Mahindra mechanics, and Mahindra is really known for having electrical gremlins in their tractors that they just have a hard time troubleshooting. So do yourself a favor. Number one, change out your battery cable, especially your ground. So I was able to jury rig a couple things, and I got it to start, and it worked for a while. So probably, once out of every 8 times, it wouldn't start. It would just click the solenoid. And so you just keep going, click, 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 and finally it would engage the starter and it would go. So the first thing they did was they sent the starter out and rebuilt it. They went out to a starter shop, they rebuilt the starter. I got it back, it had the same problems, it didn't start. So I took it back again. So this is the 3rd time now that this tractor's gone back to the dealer. So they didn't have a tractor. I need the tractor. I've got a farm, I had no tractor. So they put a new starter in it, and that took, I don't know, a week or 2. Now, one of the reasons I bought this tractor was because the dealer has always been really good to us. My father used to go to the dealership, and the dealer is stellar. I have no issues with the dealership I bought this tractor from. They were really good to me. They've come out to the farm a few times and worked on stuff. Sometimes they've fixed things free of charge. So the dealership is stellar. But what my problem is it's always broken. So they fixed that. That was the next thing that was done. So let's keep going. So in 2020, in July, this tractor was right around $22,900 out the door, with the tractor, loaded tires, the engine coolant heater, bucket hook, and a Tebben 60-inch bush hog. So it was a pretty good price. I didn't feel like I paid a lot for it, and I was pretty happy with it because it felt pretty good. It didn't have the frills like the John Deeres that I like, but I wasn't in the John Deere frame of mind at that time. I felt like it was more money than I could spend, and I just wanted a new tractor. So this is what came, and this replaced the 2538, which I had bought in 2017, and I had so many problems with that tractor that I sold that tractor within 3 years and got this one. So we can talk about the 2538 later, but that was an absolute piece of crap. There was so many things wrong with it, I had to get rid of it. So 3 years that was gone. I was like, well, this will be good. This one's Mitsubishi. I won't have any trouble with that. So I paid, like I said, just under $23,000 for the tractor with what I told you it came with. And, oh yeah, it also came with a remote, a hydraulic remote. I needed that. So I thought that was a really good price for all those things. Plus it had the flexible links on the 3-point hitch. They telescope in and out, and it had pins on the stabilizers instead of turnbuckles. So those were features that I really wanted. Those are really important to me because I'm putting on and taking off things so often. So I didn't get the backhoe right at first. I thought I was being smart. And if you order a tractor and you want a backhoe, if you got the money, buy it all at one time. I didn't have that kind of money, so I waited until last year and I bought the backhoe, and the backhoe was about $9,000 installed. And so they charge labor at the dealership at like $100 an hour and some change to install the backhoe, and it took them a while. So I don't know. The that was the best idea, but I didn't want to buy it until I had the money, and so I paid cash for the backhoe. So the backhoe, right away I hated it. Now, the controls are pretty smooth. I didn't have any trouble with the controls, but the seat is kind of a pain. You have to like unclick some stuff, lift it up and spin it, and then it clicks back down, and it's after you've used it for a while, it's not too terrible, but it's not really the best design. It's not like some of the tractors where they just flip over, or this one is a terrible design. Whoever made that, they took the suspension out of the seat when they did it, so there's no springs. It's really just a hard ride. There's no springs whatsoever. Those are gone. So I hated that. The second thing is, I wasn't abusing this backhoe in the least amount, but it's on this side, but these are all the pins that hold the rams and pistons. And there's a grade 8 bolt that goes through it to keep this part from turning. Well, every one of those grade 8 bolts within 5 hours broke. So I was trying to like turn things. If you've ever had one of these things spin and it doesn't line up with the holes anymore and you're trying to like straighten it out, it's a real bear. So I replaced them all with new grade 8 bolts, and I didn't have it very long and it was breaking them again. So I had to do some research. I think it was McMaster and Carr. I got grade 9 bolts, and so far these grade 9 bolts have been holding up, but it didn't leave a good taste in my mouth that this thing came from the factory breaking bolts. It's like, who quality assured and tested this thing? They didn't obviously use the backhoe for crap, because all the pins broke. So as far as like grease points, ease of maintenance, no problem. It does what I want it to do. It lifts quite a bit. The thumb is great, but it's not great if you're breaking pins all the time. So between the seat and the pins, hated that. So the next thing that went was these couplings. There's O-rings on these quick connects here, and one of those went kaput. So I unhooked the parts and brought it back to the dealer, and he put new O-rings in it, didn't charge me anything. And they're still weeping a little bit in different places, but when I used the loader, I was just shooting hydraulic fluid everywhere when I discovered the problem. So hydraulic issue, I think that was number 2, because you had the joystick. So second hydraulic issue here. So hydraulic number 3, and I was driving 2 miles home with a sickle mower on this from my sister's house, and what had happened is this hose right here, when it's disconnected from the backhoe, this makes a little loop and it hooks back down here. Well, this right here broke. The 3-point hitch right here hit this, and you generally would go by this, but it didn't, so this only would bend so far. So it broke this, and I lost almost all the hydraulic fluid before I was able to get it home. I was on the road. I was going at road speed, so I didn't have a lot of choices, but I did make it home, and then I fixed it, and everything seemed okay. I didn't lose all the hydraulic fluid, but about 1.5 gallons probably, and I think it holds like 5. It holds quite a bit. So that was broken. Fixed that. I had to order the parts because these hydraulic things aren't like the ones you find at Napa. There's some special cheap ones, and so whatever. Had to get that, and I fixed it and didn't have any more leaks, so I thought I was good to go on that. And so I went to go cut another field. I had everything put back together, and I got about 3/4 of the way done with cutting. It was like a 6-7 acre field, and I started noticing hydraulic fluid going everywhere. It was getting all over the hay. So I pulled over, and lo and behold, I got to take the camera off and get up under there and show you. Now you probably can't see this super well, but there's a hydraulic block in there, and the O-rings blew out on that. Now you can't get to those without taking the fender off, the ROPS off, wheel off, and everything else. So this went back to the dealership, and they knew I was right in the middle of haying, so since it was just O-rings, he fixed it for me, and I had it back. I dropped it off on a Friday, and I picked it up on a Tuesday, so, thank you to the dealership. They really jumped on it and got me back in business. The thing is last year I stopped really having a lot of faith in Mahindra, so I bought a John Deere 3039R as a second tractor, and I had this over at the hayfield. So I had my son bring the truck and the low bed over. We loaded this all up and dropped it off at the dealer, came back here, I threw the John Deere on the low bed, went over there and finished my work, and I was able to get it done. So, if you get hay down, you kind of at a place where you just have to finish it, you can't leave it there. So even though the dealership was really great at getting it back to me, it didn't prove to be very reliable at all. So it was like $20 worth of parts. It was just O-rings, but it was over $500 in labor, and then like $120 in hydraulic fluid, again, that I had just replaced. So yeah, so repairs again. Now let's take a look at a couple other things. When I bought this tractor, you know, I traded in the 2538, and I was like, I don't want a TYM built tractor. And I know some people love TYM, and that's fine, you can buy whatever you want, but the Mahindras that were built by TYM, I think they're crap. I mean, there's just a whole parking lot full of them out behind the dealership of broken TYM tractors. It's like the 25, 26 series, they're just all broken. Like the wheels literally fall off, electrical problems. There's just so many problems with them. It's like I've never seen a dealership with this many broken tractors that aren't very old at it. And so this other guy who was a mechanic for Mahindra, he'd been there forever, and he retired, and I talked to him one day. He said these things come in on crates, and they're just leaking oil and stuff all over the place when they show up. So I don't know, but I can tell you that 2538 had steel hydraulic lines on it, and where they were brazed, that was where there was just spewing hydraulic fluid everywhere. So I was like, probably just built the first thing on a Monday morning with people with a hangover from Sunday, or Friday afternoon at 4:45 before they were trying to check out. I don't know, but that was one of the problems with that 2538, was it just was one thing after another. The electronics, the dash, the hydraulics, it was just a mess. So I looked at this tractor, and I told him I wanted one with ag tires on it. I didn't want industrial tires. Industrial tires have their purpose, but not for the agricultural applications that I want it for. So I've had the industrial tires, and you know, they're okay. They're great on your lawn because you don't rip it all up, but they don't really get good traction in mud. They don't really work good in manure. They're not that great, in my opinion. They're great for loader work, you know, in the driveway or something, but not for what I wanted. So I wanted ag tires. So this came from another dealership with ag tires on it. It was brand new. And I looked at this and I said, what the heck is all this? It just looks like something that wants to get ripped off. And he said, well, it's protected here and there. And I'm like, well, okay, I just won't drive over any stumps. And fortunately, I have not encountered an issue with this other than the hydraulic valve. So I've never hit anything here. But can you imagine like going in the woods and having a stick come up and hit this or anything? You're going to be in a world of trouble. Everything's going to be broken. So I hated this right from the get-go, and I still think it looks sloppy. People who don't know anything about tractors look at this and go, what the heck is that? So I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I didn't design it, but it's terrible. So the seat belt doesn't retract, and the way this is built is you can't really spin the seat around and use the backhoe unless you pull this all the way in and then clamp it in behind you. Then you can turn the seat around, so it's not retractable. The John Deere is retractable, and that seems to work pretty good. And you know, a lot of people buy Mahindras because, well, they seem to have more deluxe features on like an economy price tractor. So I see that's appealing, and it was to me as well. But one of the other things that I ran into pretty quickly is I don't use this tractor to anywhere near what I would call the upper echelon of what horsepower it is putting out. So running a sickle mower or a bush hog in grass, you know, a 5-foot bush hog in grass. So they say whatever wide your bucket is how wide your bush hog probably should be. So it's a 5-foot bucket, 5-foot bush hog running in grass. This thing should not get hot. And the screens were clean. The grill was clean. There's a pre-screen that you can pull out away from the radiator. The antifreeze was good, but this tractor loves to get hot. And I don't know if it's the way the Tier 4 emissions is on this tractor, that it just runs hot. I'm not sure, but I can tell you that this tractor, other than you just poking around using the foot throttle, it's fine. But if you are running this thing at 540, it's going to get hot. The temperature gauge goes right up, and it is one of those things with incremental little LCD, so it gets really hot. Not to the point where it's boiling over, but you can see the temp gauge is pretty high up. So I have to shut it off and let it cool off for a while because I'm just afraid of breaking something. So even just running it down the road, and people will be like, well, you're using the tractor beyond its design limits. This tractor should go down a flat road in high gear, wide open, and not overheat. I could see if I was hauling a hay wagon up a hill trying to use a road gear, but I wasn't. I was just going down the road with a tether on the back, flat road at like 2,000 RPM, and it started getting hot. So I'm like, what the heck is wrong with this thing? So I checked everything and everything was good, but this tractor always runs hot, and I don't like that. I don't like how it runs hot. So you know, like I said, I want to like this tractor, but it's just one thing after another has gone wrong with it, and you can buy whatever you want. You keep saying that over and over again. People will swear by what they buy. People feel personally offended if you say something is a piece of junk and they happen to own it. I'm not trying to insult anybody. I'm just telling you my experience of what I've owned and how I've taken care of it and what I am going to do going forward. So you can make all your own choices, make your own decisions. But like I said, I don't get paid from Mahindra. I don't make millions of dollars off YouTube. I'm just a guy who's retired from the military, and I want to raise a few cows and not have my stuff break. It's the whole reason I'm buying a new tractor. You know, I know new stuff breaks. So I don't remember in the timeline of when it happened, but I remember the dealer took it back again because the shuttle, what happens is you can, when it's stationary, not running, sometimes it'll shift good into reverse. It always goes good into forward, but sometimes, like right now, you want to get it into reverse, you have to really snap it in. Sometimes you have to struggle with, like right here. See how it's binding? So you have to go forward and backwards a few times because it binds right there for whatever reason. And what I had to do was I took it back and they took this whole thing apart. It's just a bar that goes down to the transmission, but it's getting locked somewhere. So they lubricated it all up and it worked fine for about a week. And you know, that was probably a couple years ago. Still a problem. And only one time has this happened to me, but it has happened to people. I've seen is that what down here, the way this goes, this can get stuck in between gears, so it's pretty much stuck right here, and you can't shift at all anywhere. It generally happens if you're speed shifting, or say you're going down the road and you like want to go like a car, right? And you just have to take it real slow. But what happened is I was in a snowstorm and my foot slipped off the clutch when I was changing gears, and it bound right there, right in the middle of a snowstorm. So I had to go get a crowbar. You can pry those little dogs apart and fix it, but it can be really inconvenient. If I wanted to work on equipment all day, I would just go back and buy all the farm models again. And I had, to be honest with you, I had better luck with the old farm models that are 75 years old. They broke less. It's just that they're not safe. There's no safety features on those whatsoever. So if anything goes wrong, you can get hurt real bad. So I hope this video has been informative. And if you haven't already, take a moment, subscribe to the channel. We have plenty of tractor stuff. I have farm stuff and even train stuff. So I appreciate you watching, and I will talk to you next time. Take care of yourself.